Greetings, my friends. Please consider supporting me in my war to save pop culture by subscribing to my channel and possibly even becoming a channel member for exclusive videos, access to Doomcock emojis, and more. And if you like this video in particular, please consider using the new Super Thanks feature and putting a tip in the tip jar located next to the like buttons down at the bottom of the video. Thank you for watching, and now, on to the video. Greetings, my friends. I am Dictor Van Doomcock, the future ruler of Earth, and in this video, I am joined by my friend Bill Whittle to discuss the systematic destruction of our pop culture by elements hostile to Western civilization. These woke activists are essentially like a virus, taking over the cells of our pop culture, injecting their corrupted DNA into those cells, and forcing these cells, or franchises, to reproduce their corruption all across our existing myths and beloved stories. In this video, we discuss the concept of stolen valor and how it pertains to the woke movement. Stolen valor is a term that normally references the way that civilians purchase used military uniforms and medals they're not entitled to wear in order to appropriate a semblance of glory they have not earned. Similarly, stolen glory, as we use it here, refers to the woke cultural vandals in Hollywood who, incapable of creating their own original material, seek to cannibalize our culture to spread their woke propaganda, mutating and perverting our icons and heroes into their own. Here is my interview with Bill Whittle. Bill, introduce yourself to everybody out there and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, what you love, and we'll get started.
Well, I started out. I wanted to be an astronaut for real, so I was from 5 to 7. I saw the Thunderbirds when I was 5, and from 5 to 17, I was getting ready to go to the Air Force Academy, and then I took the vision test and had a vision problem I wasn't even aware of. So I spent that summer wandering around like a duck had been beaten over the head. And I had some friends who finally dragged me out of my apartment, and we went out and started making movies. We did James Bond parodies. So I eventually became a theater major, went to the University of Florida, and I taught astronomy at the Miami Planetarium. So that intersection of storytelling and space has always been just a huge part of my life. And I eventually had a day job as an editor here in Los Angeles and Hollywood. And right around 2003, I just started writing about America, what I liked about America, and just as with other future rulers of the earth, if you have a infinitely flat and open playing field, people with something interesting to say will stand out, and so I did so. Anyway, that was 70 or 80 million views ago, and done a lot of videos about the country and what I love about the country and what I love about freedom, and lately a lot of videos about what the hell is going wrong with this country.
Right.
But the reason I wanted to talk to you so much, Doomcock, is because you're the only person I ever heard talk about the pop culture and understand that it's an actual assault. It is an attempt to destroy the mythology of this culture, and it's not accidental that these movies are as sucky as they are. It's just tragic. And I personally think, and I've heard you say this because I'm a big fan, but I think we are not only past peak woke, but I think in the cultural side, they're running for the hills. I think they've just been absolutely annihilated in the pop culture.
They really are. I think that we are going to prevail in this struggle. I really do. I think a lot of damage is being done collaterally, however, and I don't know if we'll be able to entirely recover, but wokeness itself is on the wane. I truly believe this, not merely in our larger culture, but in pop culture.
Absolutely.
You can observe what's been happening. Look at Spider-Man No Way Home. Nothing woke about it, and it just actually played into the mythology of Spider-Man. It did it with reverence. It did it with humor. It was foremost primarily an entertainment which is something that we haven't had in quite a while. Bill,
I think
look
it
at
Louis B. Mayer over the hill in Hollywood. I think it was Louis B. Mayer, old studio boss, said, if you got a message, use Western Union. That this medium is not only not designed, but it's not intended to lecture to you. It is designed to tell a story, and you can get some interesting thoughts and background from a story. But movie making is not there so that people can scold you for your prehistoric beliefs. And anybody that tries to turn entertainment into that is going to fail.
Well, that's what my mission is, to try and call it out, try to track them, try to challenge them, and ultimately to see them fail. I mean, and I think they are failing. I mean, did you see Peacemaker, for example?
No, I don't think I did.
Oh my God, hilarious. Absolutely not woke, although some people superficially claim it's woke, but there are many, many moments in that would have gotten them canceled even a year ago. Look at Cobra Kai, just a straightforward representation of Karate Kid, a continuation of it with, again, done with respect for fans and for the property itself. Dune, the Snyder Cut, really didn't have wokeness in it. It was just a damn good story. Over and over again, we're starting to see that old adage proven: get woke, go broke, because these shows and films are succeeding wildly and are clearly the future. There's not ever going to be a time when the human spirit does not yearn for better narratives. Our mythology is something that defines us. These are our values. These are the way that we look at the world. And so, of course, these negative forces are going to be trying to undermine these pillars of our society. They're going to try and take us out by demoralizing us, by demolishing all that came before. And so it's a very serious business. I mean, it really is.
When they try to retcon Luke Skywalker, because when I talk to my audience about this, I try to explain to them, it's not just that Last Jedi was a bad movie, and it's not just that it was a movie that made Luke Skywalker look bad. It deconstructed him. It went back in time, essentially, and turned him into something different. A bitter, angry, lonely, murdering, green manatee milk drinking loser. And he was never that. But the idea of Luke Skywalker, the idea of an individual, simple individual, really, he's a farm boy, right? Simple individual hearing this call and then taking the risk to go out there and fight this overwhelming evil. That entire narrative is very threatening if you're part of the overwhelming evil crowd. You don't want the example of Luke Skywalker out there in a society that you're trying to control. As a matter of fact, you cannot control a society that worships, and I mean worships in the mythological sense, the Luke Skywalker story. So he had to be retconned out of existence. He couldn't just be killed. He had to be defamed and then killed. And it was so demoralizing to Star Wars fans, so demoralizing to you. I watched you deal with it. I had to deal with it. We all had to deal with it. And a very, very, very wise and exceedingly intimidating and terrifying fellow once said, "Without respect, you must reject." And that's the word, right? Because there is no respect. You know what it is, Doomcock, with like Mikey Spock. Let's take her as an example, just because it's the best example. You see this; it's the exact same dynamic with Rey in Star Wars or Mikey Spock in Star Trek. Are you familiar with the term "stolen valor"?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Okay, so for those of you out there who may not be, stolen valor is when you get somebody whose most dangerous job ever may have been a mall cop or something, somebody who wants they want the admiration that comes with being like a warrior, like a SEAL. So stolen valor is when a person who's never been in the military dresses up like a soldier and and receives the admiration that most of us have for soldiers. And what they're basically doing is they're trying to attach themselves to like a SEAL team member's glory that he's earned, because the guy on the SEAL team has gone out there and been shot at for his country, and the people with the stolen valor don't want to go to that kind of trouble, and they don't want to take that kind of risk. That's stolen valor. When you make a brand new character retroactively Spock's secret sister, it's stolen valor. They're trying to take all of the prestige and all of the affection and love and respect that an audience has built up for this character of Mr. Spock over 50 years and steal it and just kind of staple it onto her and tell you that you need to, if you love Spock and respect Spock, you got to respect this character. It's the exact same thing with Rey. They stole the admiration and love that people have for Luke Skywalker and tried to paste it onto this nothing burger. And that's what's going on. They're just trying to create anti-characters and give them the name of the characters that we love. And all it ends up doing, it doesn't raise those characters. It just destroys the ones that we love so much.
Yeah, absolutely. This is true. The problem with it is it goes even beyond that, because not only do they have the stolen valor, but then at least the person that puts on a uniform and steals that uniform and steals that valor doesn't then go and assassinate the original soldier that wore it. But in this case, it quite literally is that, because look, Mikey Spock, right? Mikey Spock saves Spock, like basically when he's a kid, he's an emotionally disturbed, dyslexic, hyper-emotional kid. She's more Vulcan than Vulcan, right? Without Mikey's... Right. Well, of course. Well, later she cried when they were like, oh, well, she's stiff as a board. Okay, well, we'll just make her cry then, because boards don't cry, right? Right. But the thing is, they make her better than Spock and kind of humiliate him, degrade him along the way. Same thing with Rey and Luke. Although it's even worse with Luke. Because it turns out that through Rey, they have absolutely corrupted the entirety of the Star Wars saga, because really now it's the Palpatine saga.
That's right.
It's not the Skywalker saga, it's the Palpatine saga, because not only does she steal his valor, but at the end of the fucking movie, she owns his lightsaber,
his bloodline.
She owns his home, his name. She sits on his fucking porch and she steals his sunset on Tatooine.
That's it.
I think she's even got his droid and I think his X-Wing, right? Or I can't remember. I've kind of blocked it out.
Too.
Yeah, and she didn't even wash it.
No, she didn't even wash it. It's been in there for, 30, 40 years. It's all covered with all those green milk stains, and it's kind of nasty. But this is exactly what it is. And the reason that they do that is because those characters have to be destroyed, but also it's the only way they can make those characters interesting is to staple them to interesting characters. Because the one thing I can tell you with a certainty is that woke writers, mostly feminists, mostly women, beta males as well, chuck them all in there, they don't know how to write. And they can't write. They don't have any talent at all. They're just bad writers. And so what they'll do is they'll just chuck anything in there, and then they'll try to put like a shell around this stuff and say, see, this is Star Trek because we said the word phaser, or this is Star Wars because it's got a lightsaber. When the story that they're trying to tell, or lack of story, is antithetical to what made Star Trek and Star Wars so beloved. Those two franchises changed the world, changed me, and I know they changed you, and they're so incompetent and they're so lazy that they cannot create their own character. You can imagine, I mean, they don't have the talent for it, but theoretically, you could imagine Star Trek Discovery with a lead character who was interesting, But in order to make that Mikey Spock interesting, you have to have enough talent to know how to write her failures. That's the thing about it's the thing about males, first of all, that they don't really understand, is that command authority, the authority that Luke had, or the authority that Kirk had, or Picard before he became this senile old
doddering old idiot.
But their authority is based on the fact that they have been through the ringer and they have failed and then learned from those lessons. One of my favorite moments in all of Star Trek, I'm an original series kind of guy, but one of my favorite moments of all is in Wrath of Khan, where they first encounter the Reliant, and the Reliant shoots the hell out of it. And just before they do, Saavik reminds Kirk, according to Starfleet regulations, you must have your shields rated and blah, blah, blah. And Spock says, you don't need to tell the captain or the admiral, I guess. He knows what he's doing. And the next thing you know, they get slaughtered. And the first thing Kirk says is, you just keep go ahead quoting regulations there, Lieutenant. We just got caught with our pants down. He said, he's essentially saying, Doomcock, that I just made a big mistake because of my arrogance and my hubris. And if I keep making those kind of mistakes, we're going to die. And when you allow a character to be flawed, people can relate to that, and it becomes dimensional and it becomes accessible, and you love him even more. So if he hadn't have made that mistake, then that scene later in the Genesis cave, when he said, "Oh, I don't like to lose," I swear to God, I saw that in a movie theater. I came out of my chair. I just
Oh God, it was a wonderful,
it was magnificent.
And our flaws, in Star Trek V, where Captain Kirk basically at that point says, "You're not going to take my pain. I need my pain. It's part of what defines me." And our characters are defined by their successes as well as their failures, and their failures make them human.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a dimension that these woke ideologues cannot seem to process, because they are not making narratives. They are making propaganda. It is straight up propaganda, and they are trying to present women and minorities as these exalted, godlike figures that never make a mistake. The mistakes are always the patriarchy, white males in particular are targeted. And this is not a good narrative. I mean, look at I don't know if you ever watched The Expanse, Bill.
Yeah, I watched all of it.
It's a damn fine show. And if they had made Mikey Spock like Naomi Nagata, who is a wonderful character, a belter who is conflicted and makes some terrible mistakes along the way of the show, and yet you love her. I loved her. And if they'd have made her the lead of the new Star Trek, we wouldn't be having this conversation today.
No, I was going to say, even if you take that character and move that character and keep her in The Expanse, if when you had first seen her, she was the chief engineer of some, galactic super ship or something, never wrong, always fixes the problem, kicks, Holden's butt when she needs to, it just goes down the list of all of these things that the bestest ever always has to have. And then that character becomes a nothing. You just don't care. And why should you care? One of the things that's so awful about these modern stories is there's no consequences. You finally killed the Emperor, did you? Yeah. Luke Skywalker risked his life and it convinced his father to chuck him down the pit. Well, that's an ending for you, except he didn't really die, obviously. And nobody dies. Everybody's resurrected. There are no stakes. Because I'm coming at this, I became a screenwriter because I love this stuff. And when I see this stuff being destroyed by other screenwriters, it makes me very, very angry. And you completely get that. You get it, that this is just not only lazy and not only destructive, it's demoralizing. You know what the thing is, Doomcock? I think personally, I don't know how to do it, but I think that we need to find a way to take the definition of canon away from people like Disney. That canon should be something determined by the fans, and that way you can say, is this Star Trek? Is it the essence of Star Trek? No. Well, then it's fan fiction. because this idea of canon is something that comes from the studio or it comes from the comic book or whatever. That's what leads these people to believe, and I'm talking about people like Disney executives, to essentially say to themselves, and this is exactly what they say. They say these Star Wars people will buy anything called Star Wars. Doesn't matter what's in it. They don't care. And these Star Trek people, if it says Star Trek on it, they'll buy anything. And the thing that I find encouraging about human nature is people who love Star Trek and Star Wars would rather walk away from these things than watch them be turned into something antithetical to what they loved.
Absolutely. It's because it's heartbreaking. I mean, okay,
heartbreaking.
If you're going to go ahead and kill my beloved family member, maybe there's nothing I can do about it, but I can sure as hell not stand around and watch while you abuse the corpse, while you sodomize the corpse, which is basically what they've done with Star Trek.
I used to work for Jack Horkheimer. Jack Horkheimer was a star hustler. Some people may have seen him, did an astronomy show on PBS. And he once described this kind of thing. He said, it's like holding a man's coat while he molests your child,
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not going to be part of this.
No.
But that's what they want. And it is
what they want. They're trying, but it's failing. I mean, it is really honestly and genuinely failing because now, all this non-woke entertainment is leaking through, and it's getting more and more accelerated as time goes on. I just want to let you know, man, there's a lot of really great entertainment coming that is not woke, and it just makes all the difference in the world. Even Hollywood, as screwed up and woke as they are, cannot ignore the stunning success of Spider-Man No Way Home, the success of Ghostbusters Afterlife, which is moving merchandise again. Imagine that. Capitalism at work. They're moving merchandise. There's Ghostbusters merchandise in the store.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean?
And you're right. It's so clear now that even Hollywood, even people as stupid as Hollywood producers and executives, cannot mistake it. Ghostbusters is successful. Ghostbusters with women is a catastrophe. But if we get back to what Ghostbusters really is, then people will buy it again. And even Hollywood executives are not that dense. I was an editor in Hollywood for like 10 or 15 years doing TV shows in Hollywood. And the level of stupidity of some of these people is just amazing. I often think that if Steven Spielberg were working on a cut of a movie, that one of these 27-year-old, executives would come in and say, Steven, this Schindler's List thing it's fantastic. It's just great. We love the dailies. But I think that the story would be stronger if you were to add a talking dog. Like, could Schindler have like a talking dog that would kind of go along with him, kind of explain what we're seeing for the audience? This is what they are. And you have it's hard to beat that kind of stupid, especially when they have power. It would have been a better movie with a talking dog. I think we can all agree.
It might have been. I don't know. It was just such a sad movie, and not a feel-good one. Remember when Seinfeld, that episode of Seinfeld, where he was making out with that girl in Schindler's List, and then the word got back to his parents? It was really awful. But that's the kind of thing that we used to be able to do. We used to be able to laugh at anything. I believe it was Lord Byron who said, "If I laugh at any mortal thing, 'tis that I may not weep." And
right.
Humor is absolutely one of the most important attributes that a man in a free society can have, or a woman in a free society. I mean, mankind is beset on all sides, and always has been, by the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. And if we can't laugh at anything, then we just suffer. And that's why I think woke people and woke productions are appallingly starved of genuine humor. Because humor comes from flaws and pain.
These are the most miserable people in the world. They have the only thing they know how to do is how to complain and how to protest. They are mean-spirited, vicious, evil, rotten weenies, and all they know how to do is criticize people. They are the most humorless and the most anti-human people that I've ever encountered, and somebody somehow convinced these big executives that this is what people want now. So I actually been looking forward to this for a year. I want your first single word reaction. Okay, I'm going to say something. I want the first word out of your magnificent, but probably highly scarred face. Ready? Here we go. Star Trek. First thing you think of.
Brilliant.
Okay. Yes, brilliant. That means that the people that created that franchise had to know enough about science and space and that stuff to know that you can't have sonar in space because there's no air in space, and that the people who wrote the original Star Trek, guys like Harlan Ellison, he was a kid when he wrote it, but he had already earned his bones by writing brilliant science fiction. So Star Trek, the original series, well, we got Harlan Ellison. He's a hot, rising young talent. Let's see what he can do with a script. So what he does is City on the Edge of Forever, which is, I think, probably very, very simply the best that Star Trek's ever been, because he knew what he was doing. For me, the one word response I get when I hear Star Trek is optimism. It was the future that worked. And this is the thing I loathe and despise about Discovery much more than anything else. And this is why I'm so excited to talk to you about it, because I can see how it bothers you, how you take this optimistic vision of the future, where all of these racial divisions and stuff are behind us finally. And we're out there for exploration, and we're there to explore strange new worlds, but we got phasers on board, just in case, we run into some people, maybe have a bit of a problem. And this optimistic thing, and they've turned it into this dystopia. They've taken Star Wars and made it as cynical as they are. And that is an actual crime.
It is. It's so completely and totally antithetical in every conceivable way to what Gene Roddenberry wanted. When I think of Star Trek, yes, optimism for sure. And there is no optimism in this. There's no love in this show.
Or respect.
Not love for the characters, no love for the fans, no love for the milieu, and intelligence. Forget intelligence. This is the most boneheaded, rock stupid fucking show that I think has ever been created in the history of mankind. And I am not saying that lightly.
No, I agree.
I'm not saying that lightly. I mean it, because I have died. Listen, I can't even, when I'm doing a review of Star Trek Discovery, it is literally exhausting because I have to pause it every 30, I'm not kidding, Bill, every 30 seconds to a minute.
And go out
and then I do a rant, I take notes, and and then I'll go again, and then Jesus Christ, then I have to stop it again. Star Trek Picard was just as stupid, but not as densely stupid. Like it was stupid in a way with bigger gaps.
Kind of way, yeah.
It was lame because Picard moved slow.
Kind of lame. Yeah, it's enough to make you want to let Harvey out of his containment field, and just put an end to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's awful. Every possible way. It's dumb as a box of fucking hammers that have been dropped too many times. And it's really hateful. It's hateful. When you go ahead and have tribbles retconned into, they never bred fast. We make them breed fast, and we did it by putting in like 7% of human DNA. Do humans breed fast, Bill?
You don't get to say the word triple, okay? You don't get to say the word triple. You don't know what a triple is. You don't have the slightest idea. You just know it's attached to Star Trek. You don't get to say that word. Just go away. Go away. And they're awful writers. And so you wake up and it's like all the dilithium in the universe is gone. Well, dilithium is something that started with the original series, and you got the idea, okay, there's a special kind of crystal that allows you to generate this kind of power. And the next thing you know, all of the lithium in the universe from every single mine underground and everything everywhere, anywhere, it's gone because somebody had an emotional meltdown. Somebody triggered some guy, and he no longer felt safe. So he uttered this scream that destroys all the lithium in the universe. And this kind of thing is what happens when you take people with no talent and no experience and give them the reins. This is what you get. When J.J. Abrams did first trailer for the Star Trek reboot, they turned Kirk into, just a guy who's getting into bar fights and all the other things. In the original series, they referred to Kirk at the Academy as a stack of books with legs.
Right.
In other words, he had what? Stack of books? Yes, he actually had to study in order to become captain of a starship. It actually took some work, a fair amount of work. Not just good looking or driving fast, and they just can't help themselves. One of the things about Discovery, by the way, in Discovery, the Federation is on its back foot. And I thought about this and I thought, why? And then I realized it's because all of Starfleet's budget that used to get spent on starships is now spent on creating new uniforms every week. Every week, you have to change the uniforms all throughout Starfleet. You can't wear the same uniform twice. Every time I see that woman, she's got some new uniform on. And the new logo, have you noticed it's very round, right? The original Vector logo, which is on my wall here.
Beautiful, beautiful.
It's iconic, but it's kind of pointy. It's kind of male. It's a little bit sharp. And now Starfleet is a nice oval, nice, round, soft oval. And there's no sharp edges, and we can all cry together, and we can all talk about our feelings while the universe goes to hell. And it is just plain bad writing.
It is horrible writing, and it's interesting. I don't know if it's a synchronicity because the universe is a non-dual system and all things are linked whether we know it or not, but they have inadvertently, in their very designs, admitted to cultural vandalism. I mean, there are visual cues. For example, in the original title sequence, I skip over them now, I can't stomach them, but in the original title sequence of the first season when I was still grappling with this shit, they had like a phaser on there, and then they blew it apart and put it back together wrong. They had, the ship, like all these things are basically being dissected before our very eyes. And it's like somebody who did the titles maybe knew, or maybe it's just unconscious, that yes, this thing is going to basically strip Star Trek apart and put it back together wrong. Same thing with the comm badge, where you were talking about it earlier. Well, I don't know if they still have it or not, but if you look at the first couple of seasons comm badge, it is cleaved in sunder. I mean,
right.
it is in two parts, a line going right down the middle that has it broken apart. Now, part of it's because it has to be 25% different, because this is not really Star Trek. This is a separate license and they're trying to con us. But symbolically, they have broken Starfleet. They have broken Star Trek. And,
they're divisive
visually,
people.
they're owning up to it.
Yeah, their only way to get into power is to take a culture, or a country, but in this case, a culture that is essentially a unified culture that's got some terrific values, e pluribus unum. We're all going to bring something to the party, and we're all going to get along. And politically, they have to divide the country up into little tribes. And I'd never really thought about that until you just mentioned it. But what they did was they took the Starfleet logo, which represented a united humanity, and they made a division in it. Yep. Some people are on one side of the line, some people on the other side of the line. And they can't help themselves.
Absolutely. That's why on my channel, I strive very hard to include everyone. I want everyone, because I feel that pop culture is a bridge. They try to divide us with these phony divisions, these phony labels of left and right, when really most people are center and lean one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's only the extremes that are like problematic
Right.
in our society. And I refuse to play that game. Listen, I don't care if you're on the right or you're on the left. If you smile at me and give me a Vulcan salute, you're my brother, you're my sister, and that's it. That's all there is to it, and that's all I give a shit about, because
Exactly.
they're trying to divide us in every conceivable way. And now I made the point, Bill, I did a video, 2 years ago, where I basically compared woke culture to the Tower of Babel, where essentially, there's this united humanity that is building a tower to heaven.
Yep.
And God doesn't like it, and God sends an angel down to confuse everyone by scrambling language, and thus we're all divided off and split off into tribes, each one with a different language, which I thought, well, isn't that what the woke people are doing with our pop culture? Because now, forget about language, but if we have various different kinds of versions of the legends and canon, that is, well, no, in this canon, Mikey Spock, the wooden plank, is like Spock's sister. In this canon, no, she's not.
She's not.
But now we can't even agree on that with upcoming generations. It is vile. It is divisive. It is an attack. Look, in wars, we're having attacks on the body politic. In pop culture, we're being attacked. The soul of pop culture, the soul of pop culture is our myths, of our civilization is pop culture. The soul of our civilization is pop culture, and our myths are being undermined and destroyed to demoralize us, to confuse us, to scatter us even more than we are scattered, further into different tribes that speak different languages and can never agree.
That's right.
And this is pernicious.
That's right. And it's not, we passed ironic a long time ago. But most people today who are watching Star Trek original series don't understand how radically inclusive that show was. This thing is produced at the height of the Cold War. You've got a Japanese helmsman. We just fought the Japanese 20 years earlier in 1966. So he's on board. We got eventually, second season, we got a Russian navigator. He's the current enemy in the real world. And you've got a black communications officer. I don't know how many people know this, but when Kirk kisses Uhura in Plato's Stepchildren, that's the first time a white man and a black, it's the first time two people of different races ever kissed on television. Never happened before that. And what that was saying is, it doesn't matter what you look like. What matters is, how do you feel? What's inside of you? Identity politics is the polar opposite of that. You are what your skin color makes you, and you can't change it. And you are automatically assigned virtues or vices based on how much melanin you have in your skin. It's a disgusting, revolting philosophy on any plane, but when you try to graft that identity politics onto Star Trek, which was the antithesis of racism, it's a special kind of desecration. That's the word. It desacredizes something that was worthy of being admired and worshipped.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to return to the theme of stolen valor, because in a very real sense, wokeness thrives on stolen valor, because these people seem to think that they invented progressivism and anti-prejudice. I mean, they're trying to say, Star Trek was hopelessly racist and sexist before we came along and fixed it. Let me tell you something, junior mints out there. Star Trek was fighting on the forefront of pop culture acceptance and civil rights and taking stands before you idiots were even born.
Before you were born.
And they did it at a time when it was hard because, in that aforementioned KISS, Bill,
yes.
A lot of stations wouldn't even carry it.
They cut away from it or didn't carry it. Yep. And this is a really important point. Nichelle Nichols was going to leave the show after the first season or after the second, I don't remember which. And she was talked out of it by Martin Luther King.
Yes. Martin
Luther King talked Nichelle Nichols out of basically resigning from Star Trek because he said it's so important. It is so important to show Black people as capable, intelligent, put them in the command chair. It's you have no idea, he said, what good you are doing. And when that time for that kiss came, the original script for Plato's Stepchildren, because they still kind of cheated a little bit, right? That the kiss is because these telepaths are forcing them to. But originally it was supposed to be Uhura kissing Spock. And William Shatner personally said, oh, no. If there's going to be the first racial kiss, it's going to be me. And what a lot of people don't know is that they shot it two different ways. They shot it with the kiss, and then they also shot it where he basically, it's almost like a air hug kind of thing, where they don't actually kiss. But on the two takes they shot where they didn't actually kiss, Shatner is doing the scene cross-eyed, like this, specifically so that they couldn't chicken out at the last minute and use those takes. And they want to claim credit for this? They're trying to they're trying to redo all the racism that Star Trek undid.
Yes, they were fighting for it at a time when it actually mattered, when it was difficult, when there was consequences. It always matters, but what I'm saying is that there were consequences for moving too quickly. And basically these woke wankers are standing up in a coffee house full of fellow woke wankers saying we need equality. Yeah. And everybody politely snaps like beatniks. Big fucking deal. Yeah. Try saying that shit in the 60s when the sentiment was not widespread, when it was not necessarily a popular sentiment because the country was torn apart.
Exactly. And we had all the riots going on, and these purple-haired woke SJWs are thinking that like they're the ones who are going to eliminate racism from society. It's got to be a bit of a shock for them to realize that most of the racism was washed out of society by a white male in his early 60s who chain smoked and used to be a police officer and who was there before any of them. And Roddenberry he was just built that way. And the same thing goes for Star Wars. There's such a fundamental human purity at the heart of both of these franchises, which is why they're so successful. You don't see a whole lot of Ice Pirates conventions out there, right? Because Ice Pirates was made right after Star Wars. It was just a ripoff, and nobody's talking about Ice Pirates comic books or Ice Pirates: The Next Generation. Why? Because Star Wars hit that perfect note, hit the journey of the hero. But the essence of what Star Wars is that by making Luke Skywalker a farmer, it made everybody who watched that movie feel like they could be Luke, that they could be the kind of person that one day may have to go out and save the galaxy. It made everybody want to be bigger and better than they were. And that's what makes intellectual property like Star Trek or Star Wars become mythology. I won't keep you real long, Doomcock, but I will tell you one thing. I was a limo driver when I first got to LA. And mostly we just drove businessmen to and from San Marino to the airport and back. And I came back to the dispatch office late one night. It was about 11 o'clock. And somebody said, hey, we just got a cancellation order from another limo company. Does anybody want to go down to the airport? And this is apparently some kind of Hollywood person. And I said, oh, no, I'm done. I've done just 6 trips already. I said, what's the person's name? And they said, it's Mr. Is it Mr. Kelly, Mr. Forrest? DeForest Kelly? He said, yes. And then There's like a bill-shaped little outline of dust while I'm, running out to the car. So I get to the airport and I meet him at the gate. And just as I'm walking him to baggage claim, a guy from the original limo company comes up and says, "Hey, we got it straightened out. We're his normal carrier. We'll take him home. You don't worry about it. You'll get paid for it." And I said, "I don't know. I think you need to call in on this one. I can't just let him go now that I picked him up." So he goes to make a phone call, and me and DeForest Kelley and his wife get in the car and start driving. So we're going up the 405. We're going up the 405, and sometimes people don't want to talk. And this was not the case with him. He's a perfect gentleman. And he's right here in my rearview mirror. And I said, "Mr. Kelley, would you mind if I just, because the work you've done means so much to me. And I just would like to ask you a real simple question." And he's probably thinking, oh, he's going to ask me how the tricorder works or something. I said to him, this is verbatim. I said, are you fully aware of the fact that you're immortal? That as long as the English language is spoken, as long as there's electricity, he's dead Jim is going to be a line. Are you aware that you are immortal? You're like Theseus or Perseus. You're not just a character. You're iconic. And as long as this period in history is recorded, you're going to be there. And he said, I don't think anybody's ever put it quite that way before. He said, for me, it was just an audition. I'd done a lot of Westerns, and I just went and did this audition, and it got picked up, which surprised me. I didn't think it was going to last more than one season. That surprised me. But once we started doing it, I began to realize it. And ever since then, I've had people like you come up to me and tell me that they've, that I've changed their life. So I finally drop him off up in the valley. And just as I'm pulling out, he says, hang on a second. And I'm sitting there in the car, and he goes inside, and he comes back out, and he has given me a full color headshot of him in the burgundy colored movie tunic with the
wow.
Green thing, and in gold he wrote, "Dear Bill, hang in there, your friend DeForest Kelley." And it is absolutely one of my prized possessions, and it was really like being a shepherd on, down at the base of Mount Olympus, and having one of these guys just like walk down and say, "Hey, how's it going?" It was astonishing. What a great gentleman.
Good heavens, what a wonderful story.
It's the truth.
What a wonderful, I've heard he was a great gentleman. I never got to see him, but he was amazing. And it just goes to show the grace of these folks, they're really just a cut above. And they were really dedicated.
And so I guess just to wrap all this up is those people, including DeForest Kelley and Gene Roddenberry, who was also a vet. In fact, I think Gene Roddenberry might have won the
Purple Heart?
He won. No, I think he won like Air Cross, Navy Cross. I forget.
He did fly. He was a combat pilot. He was
decorated veteran. Yeah. So he won the same award that the Wright brothers have won, and so on. And he didn't make a big deal out of that. But there was a fundamental decency about these people, and that decency that Roddenberry had and that DeForest Kelley had, that decency was built into the show. It was built into Star Trek, and when you try and strip that away, you're doing something just really goddamn evil. I mean, really evil, and they must be crushed underneath our heels.
Absolutely. And speaking of decency, let's shift over to indecency and talk about what is being done to the larger society again by these woke people, because this is a phenomenon that has many, many pernicious aspects to it. And we've talked about a few of them, but let's talk about the perhaps unintended, perhaps intended consequences of this hypersensitivity to race, sex, sexual preference, and so on. You spoke earlier about Luke Skywalker and how we could relate to him. He was a farm boy, yearning for better things. What that really means is that he is human. He is part of the human condition, and that is the quality of empathy where we can identify with all sorts of different people in movies. In fact, I think one of the great strengths of film is that it can show us a different life in a different world, and we would identify with people that we don't normally identify with.
Exactly.
For example, what the hell do I have to identify with in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? Well, I'm not a dwarf, I'm not a woman, I'm not Prince Charming. So there's really no me up on the screen for me to latch onto. And that's something that all these woke wankers complain about constantly. Is like, where am I represented in this film? Where am I represented in this film? Because you're represented because you're a human being, asshole.
That's right.
That's the thing, is I don't need to see myself. I see myself every day. What I need to see is a lost dog that I identify with. I identify with a black man suffering persecution in the Old South. I identify with a Jew being persecuted by Germany in 1939, 1940. These are introducing us to different perspectives that we might not ordinarily consider, and it makes us live these other lives in these films. And I think that is an incredibly potent force for empathy and humanity. And these assholes basically just want to indulge in narcissism, to see themselves in everything. Every movie has to have gay characters now. Every movie has to have a certain amount of diversity, reflecting the diversity of the culture, even if it makes zero sense for it to be that way. Like, the old ancient Norseman Viking saga should probably not have a whole lot of black people in it, not because there's anything wrong with black people, because it's historically nonsensical. In the same way that we shouldn't have lily white people running around in Asia or in sagas about African history. It doesn't make any sense. And I just think that this focus on diversity over everything else is actually having a counterintuitive effect. I hope it's counterintuitive. I don't know for sure. It's basically bringing into reality the kind of segregation and discrimination that we had with guys like George Wallace way back in the 60s, that Martin Luther King and other civil rights leaders were fighting against. It is disturbing to me when I hear that now there are, on a number of college campuses, separate graduation ceremonies for white people and for people of color. So is the aim of these woke people separate but equal? I mean, is this what we have come to? Are we going back in time? Are we going to this de facto self-segregation? I don't understand it, but it's creepy, and it is anti everything that civil rights leaders fought for decades, 50 years at least.
I wasn't checking my mail here. The point you're making is such a good point. I have a quote that I carry with me all the time, and I wanted to get it up so I'd get it right. After the Civil War was over, there was an enormous discussion and a big problem. What do you do with this population of 11 million slaves who are now free people living in society? How do you integrate them? How do you do it? Booker T. Washington had the attitude that they needed to develop their own businesses. Booker T. Washington, when he started the Tuskegee Institute, basically got down there and there was nothing to make the institute out of. So the first thing he did was have the students start to make bricks. Well, it turned out that those bricks were of such high quality that racist Confederates were coming to Tuskegee to buy bricks to build their own homes with. And what Booker T. Washington was saying is that the value of our excellence is built into this brick. If we can make good bricks, we can do other things as well. Now, opposing him was a guy who's much more modern named W.E.B. Du Bois. he was kind of a give us the money and the power kind of thing. But here's the point I wanted to make. So W.E.B. Du Bois, who's really like the modern social justice warrior type of his time, this is what he said is one of my favorite quotes of all time. Because the SJW say, oh, Shakespeare is a white male and, you know, he doesn't belong to us. He belongs to everybody. Here's what W.E.B. Du Bois said. He said, I sit with Shakespeare and he winces not. Across the color line, I move arm in arm with Balzac and Dumas, where smiling men and welcoming women glide in gilded halls. From out the coves of evening that swing between the strong-limbed earth and the tracery of the stars, I summon Aristotle and Aurelius, and they come all graciously, with no scorn nor condescension, so wed with the truth, I dwell above the veil. I summon Shakespeare and he winces not. What this black leader is saying is, I can call on Shakespeare and he will come and have a conversation with me through the literature, and he doesn't cringe about it. That I summon Shakespeare, I summon Aurelius, Aristotle, they all belong to all of us. They're part of the human inheritance, and to cut yourself off from all of the inheritance that we fought so hard for, except for the stuff that comes from people with my exact skin tone. No skin tones are exactly the same, right? To wall yourself off from all of this wonder because of this totally just fucked up political attitude is a crime. And when you've got a guy who's the leader of the Black rights movement saying, of course I can call Shakespeare. And not only can I call Shakespeare, Shakespeare's not going to treat me like an inferior. Shakespeare's not going to look down on me. Shakespeare and I will have a conversation because we're two intelligent people. And that common culture is being destroyed by people who have to destroy common culture in order to gain political power. And they do it through the pop culture. As it turns out, as we record this is the 10th-year anniversary to the day of the death of a friend of mine named Andrew Breitbart. Now, Breitbart can be a polarizing figure, but Breitbart said that politics is downstream of culture, and he's right. What happens in the pop culture will eventually be reflected in the politics, because we can make a decision right now to go out and see a movie, and if we want to vote on president, that's going to take 4 years. It just reacts faster. So when wokeism is being destroyed in the pop culture, that's telling me that wokeism is being destroyed in the real world as well, and maybe we can all go back to being friends again, or at least trying to be, and not having to be told that we're supposed to hate these people or whatever group of people because of what happened 7 generations ago from people who weren't oppressed by people who didn't oppress them.
It's a damn shame that all these divisions are so, they are so pervasive that we can't even talk anymore across lines of ideology or party lines. And the great fear of mine, because I'm a patriot and I strongly believe and have love for the American experiment, a house divided cannot stand. And the longer that these divisions go, as much fun as it is to own these people or those people, in the end of the day, paralysis goes before the fall. And I just worry that if we cannot find a way to bridge these gaps and once again speak to each other with respect and civility, this country is in much graver difficulty than they ever were at the hands of the Soviets or Red China.
Exactly. I like to tell people that I'm never wrong, and I am never wrong. And the reason I'm never wrong is because if it's pointed out to me that I've made a mistake, I will change my mind. I will move to where the truth is. That's why I'm never wrong. Because when somebody can convince me that I'm mistaken about something, I'll change my mind. That's the whole point of conversation. The thing about America I love the most is the ability to disagree and not end up shooting each other over it. That's what we're trying to protect here, is the ability to disagree. The only way you can find out whether your ideas or philosophies have any merit is to have them challenged, and have them challenged in such a way that if somebody says you've got a blind spot here and they can point it out to me, then I'll change my mind. I like changing my mind. But the absolute opposite of that is what's happening. And people lament how left-wing, meaning how exclusive Hollywood is, the Hollywood studio system. But the good news is that while the entertainment industry is extremely woke, entertainment is the opposite of woke. And I can prove this to you with one sentence. When I say that entertainment is the opposite of woke, what I mean by that is nobody's going to go pay money to go see a movie where James Bond confronts the supervillain with a harshly worded letter from the United Nations and then drive off in a Prius at a reasonable speed. Right? Nobody wants to see that doom cover. That's not entertaining, right? Entertainment is about individuals. It's about individual struggle. It's about guys with loud guns in fast cars and hot women, basically fighting against whatever. It's an individual thing, and I'm an individualist. That's what I am. I believe in the individuals, and we have a society here. We're handed a society that cherishes individuals and allows them to disagree without killing each other. And I don't want to see that go. And that's why I was so excited about getting a chance to talk to you, because from the center of the earth, you're able to broadcast this message and make it clear to people this is what's actually going on, and we got to stop it. Stay angry, my friends. I never forget that.
It's very important not to be complacent. And you raise an interesting point in terms of individualism. I am absolutely an individualist. You're an individualist. But I can't help but wonder the impact of this wokeness on that for future generations. Look, one of the things that's so important about pop culture is it not only, reflects and reinforces and in some cases changes our priorities and our philosophy, but at its most basic level, it provides us with role models and gives us examples of how ideally we would like to behave. Captain James T. Kirk is a rugged individualist. James West in the Wild Wild West is
Oh my God, I can't believe you mentioned that show. That is one of my all-time favorite shows. It's completely off the radar. I was in a studio 2 days ago and they had a signed picture of Robert Conrad on the wall. I loved that show. Loved it.
It's a great show. I just recently got the entire series on DVD, so I'm looking forward to reacquainting myself.
Michael Dunn was crazy brilliant on that show too. He was just terrific.
Oh yes, Dr. Lovelace, yes, fantastic. But the thing is, we had these role models. Well, a lot of us had fathers, but a lot of our fathers are just unheroically going out there and earning a living and coming home and being a good dad, which I think is fairly heroic in a very real sense. But we had these larger than life figures. Captain Kirk taught me how to be ideally a man, to be brave, to be compassionate, to be a leader, but also not lose your sense of humor or your humility.
How to be a man.
To be a ladies' man, yes.
How to be a man. In Charlie X, it's perfect. This is the father that so many of us needed. And that, yes, like in Charlie X, where he's got this changeling child who's raised by aliens and this teenage boy with these horrible powers is learning how to be a man from Kirk. And he taught entire generations that way. And Picard has the same effect on another generation of people. My personal feeling is that guys like Kirk made the galaxy safe for Picard to sip tea, but I'm an old school guy like that.
Superman is a prime example of the nobility of the human spirit, truth, justice, and the American way, old-fashioned virtues, and we need that. I mean, we had a whole generations of us were raised as individuals because our entertainment reinforced those values. Stories do. I mean, our movies and our TV shows are the equivalent of the oral traditions of, more primitive tribes in the past that, maybe didn't have a written language, but would pass relevant stories of what it means to be a member of the tribe, what it means to be a warrior, what it means to be a mother, passed down in these stories and myths from generation to generation. And what these woke people are trying to do is disrupt that means of transmission. Now, right. They can't just go ahead and kill all the elders of the tribe that know these stories and want to relay them, because now these are recorded and are on my DVDs and on the shelves. But what they can do is remake them, trash them, revise them out of relevance, and send completely antithetical messages to the original as a kind of a cultural Trojan horse snuck under our noses, right in the heart of our city. And then it opens up at night, and suddenly it's no longer about individualism, it's about groupthink, it's about being a pod person. Essentially, it's the end of Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1970 something, where I am fucking Veronica Cartwright, and my Star Trek is now going, opening its mouth. My Star Trek, my Star Wars, He-Man, James Bond are all like pod people now, and they're moaning. They're Donald Sutherland pointing and going, "Oh, you've got it wrong," and it's just a horror movie.
The Trojan horse analogy is perfect, because that's what it is. You're taking something that's a great danger and you're wrapping it in something familiar and something that you want to bring in. And so you bring in this danger without realizing it. That's the whole story of the Trojan horse. You mentioned Superman, and I'm not a real big comics book guy, but I know enough about it to be able to say that really, when you get right down to it, if you really take all of this at face value, there's really only one superhero, and everybody else has got fractions of his powers, right? So when Superman stands up for truth, justice, and the American way, what does that mean? Nobody has to lecture you on it. You watch the behavior of Superman, and I'm talking about Christopher Reeve Superman for me personally.
Yeah.
But you watch his behavior and you realize that the American way that they're referring to here is you have an all-powerful being who is only constrained by one thing. There's only one thing that constrains Superman. He is constrained by his own decency and his own morality, and that was put into him by Jonathan Kent. And that idea of controlled power, power that's used for good and only good, is the essence of what Superman is. So he's got to be destroyed as well. You can't have people go around talking about those kind of things. The reason I'm actually encouraged about this, Doomcock, is having watched your channel now for several years. What I'm seeing is that people would rather walk away from these things that they love than take a poison version of them. And that's telling me that you can't beat the biology out of people. I'm convinced that the reason so many people play video games now, like Red Dead Redemption 2, for example, made $525 million in 2 days when it first went on sale. And the reason it made that money is because it allowed an entire generation to play cowboys and Indians without having somebody bitching at them all the time, about their racism and all this other stuff. And so if video games were about getting together and writing petitions and mailing them in and protesting, if there were protest simulators, I would be convinced it's time to get beans and ammo and just head up into the hills. But when video games are basically a chance for young men to jump out of transports on D-Day and kill Nazis, all the things that make life worth living, drive Jeeps fast and blow up things. When that is what sells, that's telling me that no matter how hard these anti-human, political, no talent, mean-spirited hacks try, you can't beat the biology out of people. Young men want to be heroes. They need to be heroes. And I don't think you can knock that out of people. Certainly you can't knock it out of them to the degree where they don't recognize it when they see it. And we're seeing that in the Ukraine right now. right? You're seeing regular people just saying, okay, give me a rifle. Miss Ukraine, the beauty contestant winner, got a rifle, cut her nails. She said, these long fingernails get in the way of me being able to operate the magazine. And she's heading out to the front line. And this resonates with people. And that's what classic storytelling is about these emotions that are so powerful because they're so noble. When the Death Star explodes at the end of A New Hope, that is a release of people who just spent the last 2 hours watching this farm boy do the impossible, watching a simple individual destroy the greatest evil in the galaxy. He just destroyed an entire planet. It's just billions of people gone, and it's taken out by a guy wearing a robe who's out in the desert with a moisture farmer, and whining about not being able to go to the academy. It's brilliant, and it's more than brilliant. It's important, and it has to be protected from the people who have inherited it. None of the people who are making Star Trek or Star Wars today earned their way there, right? They didn't earn their way. They didn't write their way up. They didn't produce their way up. It was given to them, and they're using it like a Trojan horse to inject their poison into the larger culture, and it's not working.
Exactly. It really isn't. It has not. It's been a failed experiment. It's just going to take a while for Hollywood to acknowledge it, because Hollywood moves very, very slowly. Essentially, trying to turn Hollywood around is like trying to turn a giant mega cruise ship around
with an outboard motor.
It doesn't work. It takes a long time.
A little outboard motor trying to turn the Titanic. You will eventually do it. But it takes time, and how much damage is going to be done on the way is the issue, because these woke assholes, stolen Valor again. You made the point. Did they earn their way to it? No. George Lucas created Star Wars. Gene Roddenberry created Star Trek, and they would rather go ahead and culturally vandalize those milestones of our, Western civilization than risk trying to come up with something on their own with their considerably meager talents. They don't have the talent. They don't have they haven't been tried. They haven't had the rugged individualism. They haven't had the pain of failure and rejection with their, participation trophies. And, everybody's telling them, oh, you're wonderful, building up self-esteem for people that unfortunately maybe shouldn't really have such high self-esteem. You said you're a screenwriter. I'm a writer as well. And how did I become a good writer? By beating myself up and hating myself hating what I wrote and going over and over and over it again. I remember, spending hours and hours on a sentence or a paragraph. They lack the self-critical awareness and the will to struggle to greatness. Greatness has been bred out of an entire generation or two with all of this self-esteem nonsense and shit that is not earned. And I tell you, as a kid, I know it hurts. It hurts to not be chosen high up on the basketball court. Not being having the other guys like team up and try to take you out. All right, I guess we get Whittle then. Jesus, all right, fine.
Exactly, but you know what? It made me tough. It made me go ahead and examine myself and try to aspire to be better.
And you are better. And I don't know a single writer ever whose primary motivation is anything other than, I am trying to correct the things that happened to me. I am trying to write a character who is going to be the things that I wanted to be and couldn't be. That writing in general is just it's like a catharsis, like a way for the writer to undo some of the damage that's happened to him and try to get it right the second time. Now, the problem with that is is that if you don't have discipline, which also comes from pain, just pain. Somebody asked me once, why are conservatives so old? And I said, because it takes a while for life to beat the stupid out of you. But what happens is when you're a young writer, a new writer, you almost always will go into Mary Sue territory. This person that you've just invented is who I want it to be. So they're always right. They never fail, and so on. It's only with discipline and maturity that you realize that you have to get the things that you love dirty. And you've got to have them have vices and failures, because if they don't, then they've got nothing to come back from. There's nothing to connect to. That's the thing that these SJWs can't do. When I really want to rub salt in their wounds, and that's pretty much all the time, I'm inclined to say things like, isn't it funny that feminists can't write any strong women characters? What do you think? That's kind of odd, don't you think? Don't you think it's odd that the only really extraordinarily great women characters have been written by white straight males? Do you find that a little odd? Sarah Connor, Ripley, a couple of others, right? They're invented by, well, Ripley, for example, is invented by the writer of the original Alien. Ridley Scott basically made her into a hero by default. She's just the last one on the ship. And then along comes Cameron in Aliens, which is my favorite movie of all time.
It's a great film.
An absolute favorite of all time. Now, what he's done is he's made her into an action star, but she's not commanding the ship. She's not leading the Marines down there. She's not punching aliens out. She doesn't want to go. She doesn't want to go. I wouldn't want to go either. If I'd been in one of those spaceships, one of those things, I would never, ever want to go near them. But she has to go. And the reason she goes down into the depths of hell, because that's what it is. It's just fire and brimstone at the end of that movie. She doesn't want to be down there. And she's not doing it to be brave. She's doing it because this little girl is down there, and that little girl is depending on her. And she's not going to let a second daughter die. So she goes down there and does what she has to, and she's scared. And that's why it works. If she had just slid down the bat pole, right, and gunned everything down, and then punched out the alien queen, and issued some kind of remark about the patriarchy too, and then just gets back in the ship, who gives a damn? Who cares?
Exactly. And it's also very interesting that in Aliens, in particular, Ripley is a hero not despite her femininity, but because of her femininity, because she is indulging her maternal instincts as a woman.
Yes.
She's not just a placeholder for a man like Captain Marvel or Mikey Spock, every bit as brutish and kind of swaggery and insensitive and violent as a man. No, she's clearly a woman. Same thing with Sarah Connor. Sarah Connor is John Connor's mom, and she has come into possession of this information. And even though she is muscled out to the hilt and is like, by God, ready to kill and has become an expert in firearms and explosives and everything else.
Because she has
In the end of the day, she loves her son.
Yes, she has to become those things, because if Sarah Connor cannot figure out how to work a rifle or make a bomb, then there is no John Connor. And if there's no John Connor, there's no human race. And Ripley comes out of this thing with this baby in her arms, and then she confronts the greatest monster of all time, the alien queen. And the first words out of her mouth are, leave her alone, you bitch.
Yes.
That is a mom talking. That's what a mother does. And that's how a mother behaves. And that's why that character is so believable, because she's so real. She doesn't have attributes and values that we want to load onto her. The way she was written was to take the natural attributes, not just of women, but of anybody. I don't want to go down there. You out of your mind? Well, your kid's down there. Well, it kind of changes the equation a little bit, doesn't it? And the people who are writing these female characters today have nothing like that talent. They just nothing like that talent, not even on the board. And so they just want that stolen valor thing. I know what we'll do. We're going to make her interesting by making her Spock's sister. Oh, really? because that didn't make her interesting to me. That made her less interesting. You want to make her interesting? Why does she go out on a landing party someplace, beam down, and get the whole landing party killed? That would be interesting. If I found her in her cabin crying because her arrogance made a mistake that cost her the lives of 7 crew members, that would be interesting. But why go to all that trouble when you can just, wave your little wand, ding, she's Spock's sister, so therefore you got to love her, and this is Star Trek.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so phony. I mean, you're well aware of the Star Trek episode Obsession, which dared to present Captain Kirk in a bad light, not once, but twice. Because in the first instance, he was a young lieutenant beamed down to the planet, encountered this vampire cloud that killed everybody, and he delayed firing his phaser because he was startled, and he has blamed himself for that incident his entire life. And then it even makes him look bad again, because then when a similar thing, the exact same thing happens to another crewman, they encounter this same creature, and Kirk is coming down on this kid like a shitload of bricks, and he's being irrational, and he's being a real dick about it. And that just highlights what a hero Captain Kirk is, and what an interesting character he is, because he is not perfect.
No,
at the end of the episode, he comes to understand that he has been mistaken. He was mistaken originally. It wouldn't have made any difference anyway. And he has mistreated this kid because by proxy, he's being hard on him because he's being hard on himself. And like you said, Captain Kirk is never wrong, because when he is wrong, he corrects himself and always strives to greatness. And I think that there is no reflection like that for characters like Mikey, Spock, or Ray, or any of these woke idiots that are basically stealing Valor from the giants that came before.
There's an episode where there's a transporter accident and Kirk is split into 2 pieces. One of them is a violent brute, and the other one is a sniveling coward. And neither one of those 2 characters are attractive. And the entire point of that episode is what makes Kirk is he has the compassion of the sniveling character, and he's got the will and the resolution and the willingness to use force of the brute. But it's the combination of these 2 things that make him what he is. And on a much larger scale, Kirk is the only whole character on that show. McCoy is emotion, Spock is reason, and either one of those 2 alone are ineffective. Spock is a terrible captain of the Enterprise. In fact, in the reboot movie, one of the main themes of the movie is that Spock is going very hard out of his way to make sure that Spock doesn't become captain. McCoy is not a commander, but when you take the compassion and the logic and combine it into the will, now you've got a whole character in James T. Kirk, and he is a flawed human being who nevertheless keeps going out there and overcoming his flaws. And he had the confidence to do that. The episode, was it the apple, I guess? Is that the one with the reptile head, Ball?
Yes, Ball.
So you've got this perfect society. Nobody gets old. Nobody gets sick. All they have to do is shove matter into this giant reptile mouth, and he provides food and controls the weather, and everything is groovy. And Kirk comes down there, and he has the cultural confidence to put the phasers on that thing and destroy it, knowing that he's bringing pain and death and murder and all the rest to these people, because these people are not human. They're pets. They're zoo creatures. And he doesn't hesitate to do that. He knows he's right. And I've always been so amazed at the talent it takes to take something like that. You're going to have him come in and destroy Eden? Yes, that's exactly what we're going to do, because humans don't belong in Eden. We're not built for Eden. We're built for other things. And he doesn't hesitate. He just does it. And he's right. And who else could be right about something like that other than a guy who's been through so much turmoil? You have personally, so have I, so much pain, so much emotional stress and torture. Kirk has been through these things, And so when he makes a decision based on not only his experience, but his compassion and his decency. And all of this stuff over the course of 72 episodes seeped into me and stayed there, and it never left. And it's just such a pleasure and an honor talking to somebody who does so well, explains what this whole thing is about. It's not about comic books. It's not about a TV show. It's about much, much bigger stuff than that.
I think that is a wonderful place for us to interrupt but not end our conversation. I think we have many, many more things that we could talk about. We didn't even get to the things we were planning to talk about today. But it was an absolutely fascinating conversation. I enjoyed it thoroughly, Bill. This was a joy, and I hope that we can do it again.
I'm available at any time. Just send out the bat signal. Send out the Doomcock signal, and
the three-headed rooster of Eridon.
And then maybe next time I can ask you some questions. Why Earth, for example? Why? I mean, if you're going to be the future ruler of any place, why did you pick Earth? And why the center of the Earth instead of the far side of the moon, for example? Those kind of questions. Those are the kind of things that people want to know, Doomcock.
We will see if we can go ahead and set that up, Bill. But I enjoyed this thoroughly.
Me too.
Thank you, sir, for being here with us, and let's do it again for sure.
You bet.
Ha 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 ha.